You will be aware that IFFPG are a not-for-profit body approved by the Minister for Climate Action and Environment to run the National Farm Plastic Recycling Scheme. Farmers understand and appreciate the necessity to properly dispose of farm plastic because of its potential to inflict huge damage on the environment. Farmers fully cooperate and are willing participants in the scheme. At present, all farm producers of plastic participate in the IFFPG by paying a levy per tonne of plastic sold on the Irish market. The scheme then collects the waste plastic from farmers by way of farm collections, or more typically, they bring it to bring collection points, where farmers bring their plastic and are charged by weight. A third source of income for IFFPG in previous years has been the resale price of plastic to third-party recycling facilities outside of the jurisdiction. The farm waste plastic market underwent a dramatic shift in January 2017 when the Chinese recycling market closed abruptly. There are other recycling facilities available in Europe which our operators cannot afford to access. We have this ludicrous situation here in Ireland because Ireland is the only country in Europe whose regulator has designated this type of plastic as amber waste. The current Irish designation is amber, which attracts significant and stringent transport requirements and charges. These regulations are imposed by the Transfrontier Shipping Office in Dublin City Council. In contrast, the status across Europe is that farm plastic is designated green and enjoys free movement with no additional costs. A combination of closures of the export to China and the non-viability of transfer to other European recycling centres has left alarming stockpiles of plastic in the hands of IFFPG and private businesses. It is now inevitable that such plastic will have to be exported from this jurisdiction to be recycled at a considerable loss. There is no Irish recycling facility equipped to deal with significant levels of farm plastic recycling. As a result, we have now an enormous amount of plastic sitting in gigantic piles in several locations around the country. These mountains of plastic are growing daily and, ironically, have become a threat to the environment. They have to be seen to be believed. During its tenure, IFFPG has collected quantities of waste far in excess of its target. It is currently collecting approximately 70% of available plastic. The balanced plastics on the market are collected by private Irish businesses. These independent operators are subject to the same regulation but do not receive any portion of the financial levy paid by farmers. This is not fair, it is not equitable, and leaves the independent operators at a financial disadvantage. Tánaiste, in the light of the current market conditions, does the Government acknowledge that it is time for a policy review in respect of farm plastics, including establishing a strategy for building a national farm plastic recycling facility, reviewing the export status of farm plastics, and ensuring the equitable distribution of the producers' levies amongst all licensed assemblers and shippers of plastics, in circumstances where IFFPG benefit 100% from the levy, even though they only collect 70% of the plastic?
Tánaiste to respond.
This is quite a technical issue, so I'll make sure you get a good response in writing as well, but let me address some of the issues because I know you flagged it. First of all, the legislative framework for the importation and exportation of waste in the European Union is set down in very clear regulations, both of the European Parliament and the Council. Under the Waste Management Shipment of Waste Regulation 2017, Dublin City Council was designated as the national competent authority for the waste exports and imports, and the National Frontier Waste Shipment Office, or the NTSFO as it's called, was established under the auspices of Dublin City Council. Just to clarify something though, because I think it's important to say this, used farm plastics are not categorised as hazardous waste, but the NTFSO has determined that used farm plastics can be shipped in accordance with green procedures as opposed to amber procedures, provided that used farm plastics have undergone treatment at an authorised facility in Ireland. Treatment includes processes such as sorting and washing, which result in the removal of contaminants such as sand, soil, grit and stone from the plastic prior to export. Unprocessed used farm plastics are subject to the prior notification and consent procedures set down in EU regulations, which apply to the shipment of amber-listed waste. So there is an issue between amber and green. I accept that, and that has a real consequence in terms of where you can export to. But what differentiates the two is a cleaning mechanism to make sure that it is effectively pure farm waste plastics that's actually being exported. I think the Irish Farm Film Producers Group that you mentioned, the IFFPG, are doing a really good job actually for farmers in terms of collection and making available 235 bring centres annually for farmers to bring waste plastics. Yes, there is a challenge because it is proving more difficult to export to some of the markets that we would previously have exported to. I think it is important to say that Bord na Móna have opened a recycling facility in Littleton. The old Littleton briquette factory has been reopened by way of a partnership between AES and Sabrina Manufacturing Group. This facility now recycles waste farm plastic, which was previously exported into plastic pellets, which are reused in the production of films. Today, 24 people are employed at the facility, but it's intended that will increase to 40. A submission is presently being prepared to increase the intake to 50,000 tonnes of waste plastics, which will see a further 20 jobs on top of that next year. So we are building capacity at home here to actually recycle in a way that's environmentally sound farm plastics. But I think there also is export options under a green category rather than an amber category, but it does have to be cleaned first.
Deputy. I accept that there's a good job done in collection, but the problem is we're collecting the plastic, it's piling up, it has no place to go. And anybody who looks at this sensibly will say that the classification method is a nonsense. This is plastic which is usually covered with nothing other than muck or dry clay. It should be classified as green, and that's really what I'm asking you to do today, to get on to the authorities in the Council and ask for this to be reclassified as green. Secondly, private sector operators should have pro rata access to the monies collected through the levy. As it stands at the moment, IFFPG have a monopoly on all monies collected, even though they're only handling 70% of the plastic. And I think that in circumstances where the IFFPG have substantial net assets and have cash on hand in excess of 3.7 million, that they should be tasked with establishing an Irish recycling facility and supporting places like Littleton in the private sector. These are the type of initiatives that would be logical, and to use the monies held by that company on behalf of the state. In actual fact, it's farmers' money and it should be better spent. So I think, Tánaiste, the government needs to acknowledge that while the management policy in respect of the collection of plastics over the last 20 years has been good, it has been also an exercise in short-term thinking, dealing only with the collection of farm plastics. There is no long-term strategy, and that's what we need to look at here.
First of all, I do want to re-emphasise the point that I think both farmers and the group that they pay into, the IFFPG, have done what seems to me to be a pretty efficient job. You don't see a lot of farm plastics being disposed of inappropriately any longer. The collection hubs and the collection from farmyards, which is organised and paid for by the levy, I understand, works pretty well. The issue that's changed in the last number of months is the ability, I understand, to be able to export large volumes to China. And that has resulted in large amounts of farm plastics, as you've suggested now, being in storage, and we need to manage that, both at home in terms of increased capacity, which I think is certainly a viable business, in terms of appropriately recycling this plastic. On the two issues of where the levy should go and who should be able to access it, and whether or not it's possible to recategorise what is currently amber waste as green waste without going through an expensive washing facility, is something that I'll ask the Minister to come back to you directly on.